Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're opening an investigation into an artifact so baffling, so seemingly out of time, that it honestly threatens to completely rewrite human history. We're going to be looking into a tiny, unassuming clay jar that whispers a story of electricity moving through the ancient world. And we're talking nearly 2,000 years before the very first light bulb was ever even conceived.
It's a simple question, but a really profound one. We so often just think of our ancestors as, well, people of stone, wood, and muscle, right? Living in this long, dark night until the brilliant light of the Industrial Revolution finally flickered to life. We just assume progress is this steady, upward climb. But what if that assumption is entirely wrong? What if there were peaks of immense, mind-blowing technological achievement that simply vanished into the shadows of deep time? Okay, let's dive into this. Our story begins not in some pristine, high-tech modern laboratory, but in the quiet, dusty archives of a museum in 1930s Baghdad. This right here is our first crime scene, if you will, the place where a literally world-shattering piece of evidence was sitting quietly, completely unnoticed by the modern world. Part 1. The Dusty Archive Discovery, Unearthing the Kujit Rabu Artifacts. So back in the 1930s, researchers were examining artifacts found at a site called Kujit Rabu, which is near the ancient Persian capital of Ctesiphon. These objects date all the way back to the Parthian or Sasaniid periods. Now, to a casual observer, they were entirely mundane. We were talking about a collection of clay jars, roughly the size of a man's hand. They looked exactly like simple storage vessels, the kind of ordinary pottery used for holding scrolls or preserving spices. Absolutely nothing to write home about, right? Part 2, Anatomy of an Anomaly, More Than a Storage Jar. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast between what archaeologists expected to find and what was actually inside. Everyone assumed these were just simple clay vessels, but look at the forensic reality. When archaeologists actually looked inside, they didn't find old spices. They found a copper cylinder. And inside that copper cylinder was a central iron rod. And holding these highly specific metallic components in place was bitumen, which is a natural asphalt used as a sealant. Any modern physicist or chemist will tell you for sure that this specific arrangement is not random, not at all. An iron anode and a copper cathode suspended together is the exact configuration of a galvanic cell. It is literally a blueprint for a battery. It's a device explicitly designed to move electrons and generate electricity. Yet this was built in a time when the world was supposed to be powered exclusively by fire and sweat. Crazy, right? Part 3. Coaxing the Ancient Spark. Testing the Impossible. For decades, mainstream archaeology looked at these jars with total skepticism, assuming we were just, forcing a modern interpretation onto a strange ritual object. So, modern experimenters put it to the test. Step 1. They constructed exact physical replicas of the clay jars, copper tubes, and iron rods. Step 2. They filled the jars with an electrolyte. Now, it didn't require modern chemicals, just something acidic like vinegar or grape juice, which were both incredibly abundant in ancient Persia. And Step 3. The unbelievable result. The jars actually produced a detectable, steady, low-voltage electrical current. Now, it wasn't a massive bolt of lightning, but it was functional, applied energy. Scientists found that if you linked several of these replica jars together in a series, just like we do with modern batteries today, you could produce a current strong enough to actually sting your skin. Which leads us as fellow investigators to the ultimate, kind of forbidden question. Why? Why on earth would an ancient civilization go to all the trouble of manufacturing a low-voltage electrical current? I mean, they didn't have cell phones to charge, they didn't have light bulbs to illuminate their temples, so what exactly was the motive behind this technology? Part 4. Motive, the Golden Sheen, Solving the Coding Mystery. Well, if you wander through the galleries of ancient Near Eastern art, you'll find a glaring discrepancy. Standard history tells us that ancient gilding was a super crude, difficult process, achieved by hammering foil or using a highly toxic mercury process. But then we have these anomalous artifacts from the exact same region. We're talking art and jewelry boasting impossibly fine, incredibly uniform gold and silver coatings that simply cannot be explained by hammering or mercury. Those impossibly uniform coatings look exactly like the result of electroplating. And electroplating is the advanced chemical process of using an electrical current to deposit a perfectly even, microscopic layer of metal onto a surface. It requires a steady, low-voltage current, the exact kind of current produced by linking Baghdad batteries together in a series. So, the crucial point is this.
If the Baghdad batteries were used for electroplating, we are looking at a massive historical disruption. It means that ancient jewelers and smiths had mastered a form of applied chemistry nearly 2 millennia before its official rediscovery. Let that sink in.
Part 5. The Lost Technology Paradox, Pulses of Brilliance. The Baghdad Battery belongs to a haunting category of archaeological discoveries known as OOPArts, or out-of-place artifacts. These are historical objects that demonstrate technological abilities completely anomalous to their time period. Think of the Antikythera mechanism, which proved the ancient Greeks built a functional analog computer 1,400 years before the Renaissance. The Persian batteries fit right into this category. They are undeniable physical proof of a lost tradition of engineering that totally defies our linear timeline of progress. But you might be wondering, if this was real, why are there no instruction manuals? Why no written records of some electrician's guild in ancient Baghdad? Well, the truth is, ancient knowledge was incredibly fragile. High-level technical knowledge wasn't just published for everyone to read, it was closely guarded by secret mystery schools. It was passed down entirely orally, whispered from master to apprentice. And when those fragile lineages were suddenly broken by war, plague, or catastrophic societal resets, poof, the knowledge simply shattered. And this brilliantly illustrates the terrifying gap of lost innovation. Around 200 BC, during the Parthian and Sassanid periods, these batteries were actively constructed and used. Then, the lineage breaks. We endure a massive 1,800-year lost knowledge gap, where this brilliant applied chemistry is completely forgotten. It isn't until the 19th century that electricity and electroplating are finally rediscovered by modern science. It's honestly the ultimate tragedy of the artifact. Because the knowledge was never written down, we are left today staring at the hardware. The physical clay jars, the copper, the iron. But the software? The actual understanding of how to link them, how to use them, the sheer genius of the invention, it just evaporated into the mist of deep time. We're the latest chapter in an unbroken chain of survivors, stretching back thousands of years. But man, we have forgotten so much of what we once knew. The Baghdad Battery proves that our ancient ancestors knew how to coax invisible forces out of metal and liquid. They were innovators, absolutely capable of immense, world-altering leaps in logic. Which leaves us with one final haunting thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. If human beings were capable of mastering electricity over 2,000 years ago, what else did we figure out and what else did we forget?